Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again. We're still with you in the Breakfast Show, and now it's time for our second segment. And as we promised you in the beginning of this segment, that we'll be talking about a very important campaign that is called Education for All campaign. Education for All campaign stresses on the importance of trying to education actually for all children, regardless of their disabilities or their abilities rather, or of their gender. We'll be talking more details about this campaign. It's a very important campaign that was launched recently by Handicap International. This is a leading independent international community development organization as part of the Citizens Together project. Allow me to welcome my guest here in the studio. He is Mr. Renier Karabine, the operational coordinator, and also Mr. Kazem Gaber, who's the project management at this organization. A very good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, first of all, I'd like to talk more about the organization, to know more about this campaign.
Okay, so Handicap International is an organization that works alongside persons with disability and for vulnerable population. So normally we work especially on addressing the needs of persons with disability, on addressing the needs of vulnerable population, and working on the rights of persons with disability. Also, we are trying to improve the living conditions of vulnerable population and, of course, the disabled population. So in Egypt, we work on these fundamental rights issues for disabled persons. We work on empowerment and we work on inclusion. That are the main topics that we are working on at the moment in Egypt. This education campaign is part of the ACT project, what you mentioned, that originally originated from Upper Auschwitz and also targeting 5 other governorates. And this education campaign is, what you mentioned, is education for all. So it's not only related to disabled children that needs to be either in special schools or in mainstream schools, but it's also related to refugee children that needs to go to school, or it can be also girls that are in isolated villages that needs to be
okay, so it's regardless of their situation actually and their ability as well. So it's not just children with their disabilities.
No, because we wanted to broaden the scope, and so we said, okay, partner up with some other INGOs and local NGOs and also DPOs in Egypt. So we work together with Caritas, we work together with ASMAE, we work together with CRS, we work together with Terre des Hommes and some other local NGOs that are also in Cairo, but also in the other 5 governorates, to make it more inclusive, to approach all the children that are in need of education, that have the right to have education.
Okay, so allow me, Mr. Kazem, to be talking about the campaign itself. I know it's an awareness campaign, and as you just mentioned, it's in 5 other governorates, so it's not in all the Egyptian governorates, right?
Yes, correct.
So tell me more about this awareness campaign.
Yes. First of all, we need to address the importance of education, because the cost resulting from exclusion from education is very high. We are talking about 1/3 of the children who are dropping out of school are children with disabilities. So
this is ruining their lives. Actually.
Yes, exactly. So this means that when they grow up, they are less likely to have a good job, they are less likely to have more life chances. So that's why we are focusing on this inclusion for all. We think about persons with disability, but as my colleague Renier said, but also girls, women. Big part of the problem actually is the awareness of the families and parents who sometimes becomes overprotective for their children. They are somehow scared to let them go to school, or they are unaware of the regulations that is part of the state's laws that can make them feel that they have the right to do it and easy to access the schools. So big part of this campaign, Education for All, that we try to raise awareness for the families and parents. As Renier was saying, we go to villages, we go to places that are marginalized, and we have some interactive activities. So we have like a touring bus with activities, with clowns. We try to involve the parents to make some fun activities, but also as part of this we try to send some key awareness messages about the laws, about the regulations, how to apply for schools, what to, let's say, like what to expect to find in these schools in terms of resources, and what happens or what should you do if something goes wrong. So we have the bus tour. We have also a big SMS with mobile phone campaign. We also try to reach for areas and districts that has maybe less contact with internet. So that's part of it as well.
Okay.
Sir, talking about the idea of the inclusion when it comes to schools, I would like also to talk about the idea, as you mentioned, you are talking about the awareness, for example, among parents, but what about the schools? I mean that sometimes, if you are talking about children, the refugees, for example, definitely they need psychological help, they need a lot of things. They pass through hectic experience. And when it comes to children with learning disabilities, the idea is that how far this school is prepared to work with this child. I'm talking about the school, I'm talking about also the teachers, because this is another issue. So how far can we deal with this?
Yeah, let me just refer back to when I was in Ashut. I did a small data collection interviews with the Ministry of Education, with teachers of the special schools, with teachers of the mainstream schools, and with parents and children. So at the end, so the ministry is well aware of the new degree. So that means that children with mild disabilities should be placed into mainstream schools. They have a quota for it. It should be around...
What is the mild?
Sorry?
You mentioned something, it's children with mild disability?
Mild disability.
Which is?
So you have mild disability, you have severe, so it can be moderate,
Okay.
mild. So there are different degrees of disability. So especially they want to focus on the mild disability you have included in regular schools. When we see the ministry, they are okay with it and they are behind it. But when you go on the ground and you see what's happening in the special schools and in the mainstream schools, there's a lot of children, what I saw also in the special schools, that might be able to
Yes.
go to mainstream schools, but it'd be either the teachers that say, no, I want to have them included in special schools only, or the parents are afraid that their child with mild disability will have problems at the mainstream schools, bullied, discriminated, or whatever. So that there are aspects that we have to work on the, let's say, the teacher aspect related to building their capacity of including the person with disability or children with disability inside of regular schools, but also the parents, they need to be taught about it should be good to have children with mild disability inside of the schools. But on the other hand, we also have the part of the children. There might be non-disabled children that are not so happy with their disabled children inside of the school. So there are a lot of issues that are,
Lots of challenges,
yeah, a lot of challenges, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very...
Exactly. But I think that in Egypt, the ministries are making the right move of this new decree of saying, okay, we want to have mild disabilities inside of
But
mainstream
the
schools.
idea is not about the parents. I believe that all of the parents, they want to get their children to the mainstream school. The idea is that about the school itself, the teachers themselves. This is the main issue, basically.
And bullying, actually.
Yes.
This
Yeah,
is a
but
very
the
important
thing
thing
is,
as well.
I agree partly with you, because I think that also, yes, the teachers need to be taught about how do I include
Because this will
children with
require more
disability.
effort
Yeah,
from
exactly.
her.
But on the other hand, also the parents, there are a lot of parents that say, okay, they are afraid, for example, to lose their pension for their disabled child. They say, okay, if my child goes to regular mainstream school, I lose my pension for my child. So it might also be constraints of sending their children to mainstream schools. On the other hand, also not all the children, especially with severe disability, they want to be included in mainstream school, might not be a good idea. So there are a lot of challenges also. I think the parents also feel that they have some constraints on this. So yes, I agree. The teachers, especially when I visited Ashut, the teachers, they are not aware of what they need to do with disabled children. Sometimes they put them at the back of the school, at the classroom. Sometimes they ignore them. So it's also not inclusion. That's just integration inside of a classroom, but there's nothing to do with inclusion.
With inclusion, yeah.
Yes,
So-
if I may add also, part of ACT project, we try to have some dialogue and some connection, communication between the different actors in this inclusive education system. So we have the schools, of course, and we have the ministry, which they regulate everything. They have decrees, they have regulation, they have resources, even if it's a bit limited. But also we have the disabled people organizations, and they play a key role in this, because they know exactly what it means to include a child in school, what they need in terms of physical accessibility, but also information accessibility. We are talking about the school curricula that is not maybe accessible for persons who are blind or have visual impairments. They can't read the curricula, or hearing impairment. They can't hear the teacher.
It's the accommodation of the curriculum.
So these kind of
the
accommodations,
approach.
exactly. So we try to involve the disabled people organizations to be active role with dialogue. with the schools, with the ministry, to share their needs, and also to give a helping hand in terms of implementing maybe small and less expensive accommodations, which the Egyptian constitution and the international also convention call it reasonable accommodation, which is something not necessarily costly, but we can make small adjustments to the environment and we allow more people to be involved.
Okay, yeah. You've started 1 month ago, so I wanted to know the feedback. You've started in Asyut, as you just mentioned, one of the governorates, and what about the rest of the governorates? Especially in Upper Egypt, I think it's very, very challenging. Dealing with the parents themselves actually is very challenging. So how was the feedback in this 1 month?
So when I had contact with the project manager, Safa, we had some feedback that we found out, especially in Bani Suef. There was a group of parents that said, okay, my child has never been to school. I'm really thinking after this campaign that it would be a good importance for my child to go to be included in school. They saw the need, they saw the future possibilities for the child. So we had some very good feedback about a group of parents that are
they were
willing
waiting
to send
for this
their children
opportunity.
to school. Yes. And also what we made use of is the SMS campaign. So also in the isolated villages where especially girls are, let's say, neglected to go to school, or they are only being a part of the household, helping their mothers, etc. We want to reach the most vulnerable, so that's why the SMS campaign is very important, because they don't have all access to internet or to social media. So this SMS campaign, I think that brought a lot of success as well to reach the most vulnerable. And yeah, what I understood from especially in the governorates that we work in, that we have very good feedback, that is very much also with the other partners that we work on, that parents are thinking about sending their children to school. And also we know that some people committed to say, okay, I want to send my children out to school. So it has some good impact so far.
Of course.
Yes, I can also say that I participated in one of the areas where the bus tour was at, and what I found is it was really fun. So above all, the parents, the mothers, and I got really direct feedback from the mothers. They rarely find an opportunity to participate in some recreational activities. So they had so much fun.
So you made sure by yourself actually, that everything is okay, they're having so much fun.
Yes, and that was key thing, because then they were able to receive the information that we were trying to mention. There is some questions and challenges, as you mentioned, the difficulties that might be faced inside the school themselves, their fear for any other things that's related to bullying and other negative behavior, let's say, from other colleagues. But here I would also want to mention that we are trying to push as much as possible to have this close cooperation with NGOs, more specifically disabled people organizations, to take part of this, because they are the ones who know best what a child with a disability would need inside such schools. And the schools mostly are willing to do this, but they want to know how, because they don't want to make big mistakes.
Talking about this campaign, so what is the main objective or the target? I mean, after you finish, what do you expect? What is next?
What is next? It's, so we started especially this education campaign before the school year, so that was an important key timeline. So we had from August we had the time to put in place all this bus tour, this SMS campaign, this interviews at TV, at the press conferences that we did. So before, I think that we are well prepared, and also well prepared for the parents that say, okay, we have some time left for the school year starts, to say, okay, my children go to school. So from this moment onwards, I think that this timeline is quite evident for helping the parents to make a decision about that. And afterwards, we're also going to monitor the impact. So of course, we had some feedback now already through the bus tours and some groups from Beni Suef, but also we want to make let's say an evaluation following up this campaign and see what was the output of the campaign. Of course, after maybe 1 year, we're going to say, okay, we do it again if it was very successful, Or,
I mean, how do you measure the success of this? I mean, are you going to refer to the government students? This is what I meant, that who will join academic years or regardless of the age. I mean, what's
now we beforehand we invited especially the parents that we know from our list, but also from our partners, let's say, list that say, okay, these are the parents that have at least one child. It could be, for example, they have 5 children. One is disabled, they say, okay, you stay at home. Or it can be that they have 5 children and the girl stay at home. That we focus on these parents. So we know the parents that we are working with. So we know from the bus tour and we know from the SMS campaign who we are going to target. So the follow-up questions will come after, let's say in a couple of weeks, to say, okay, did it work out well, and did you send your children or your 5th child to school? So we're going to measure that, following up with interviews or with some questionnaires on this. But yeah, we know the target groups, so we know also the names of the parents.
Okay, I know that you are targeting the public schools actually, but are you planning to expand more in the rest of the governorates on?
The plan was, because we had a fixed timeline, we had a fixed budget, so to focus first on public schools mainly, and also to focus on, because normally there we find the most vulnerable children, the disabled children, the vulnerable girls, etc. So that's why the focus was more on public schools for this campaign. For the future, we also can think about expanding it to other governorates, or also to think about private schools, or if there is an issue. But we are more aware of the public school challenges for disabled children to be included.
They need it more actually, I know that.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Kadam, I want to know from you, what are the main challenges that are faced by the handicapped people or people with disabilities here in Egypt? We know that they are not given the rights actually, and I know that quite well, so that's why I want to know the main challenges or your message actually to those who are in office.
Okay. You mean like persons with disability in general? So first of all, I think we have around 10 million persons with disability in Egypt, and we don't see many of them in the streets. We don't see many of them in at workplaces. We don't see many of them in many of the public and services that we go to. So so why is that? First of all, we have accessibility issues. We are talking about a moment where a person leaves his or her home going to another place. There are several obstacles found in the streets, in the transportation, etc. So this is one thing which is very important and significant, that weakens the mobility of people. We have another challenge, which is the awareness and attitude of people. So how people sees disability in general. So do we see it from a charity perspective, like this person is poor, we need to give him charity, we need to bet him, or we see him as an equal citizen that has rights to access all of the opportunities as anybody else. So I think about the awareness of the general public is important. In my project where we work specifically to support youth with disability to access livelihoods opportunities, jobs, employment in other companies. We try to find also some of the solutions to convince the employers that persons with disabilities are capable of doing their jobs, and not just asking them to stay at home, because they can contribute to the success of the business.
So also there is another important issue when it comes to this, talking about the awareness of the other kids, other children as well, and other parents. The point is that they believe that they are helping this child. On the contrary, the presence of such a child in the class is more healthy for other kids as well, because they are learning how to support, how to help, how to be a buddy for someone, and also in the meantime how to accept the other, which is one of our main challenge. We have to accept that we are different. Each one is special, not only this child. How can we work on this?
No, it's nice what you're saying, because I fully agree on this, is that yes, it's a challenge, we know, but in a classroom...
Because these children, they might have behaviors that are not acceptable, but it has to do, how are you going to deal with this behavior? All children have behavior, but we always focus on these kids.
Sure, but if we look at some of the positive side of the story, that we also see some of the disabled children, especially with mild disability, inside of a classroom, and also the reaction from other children that they say, okay, here I can help you a little bit, we become friends, or I know that you're a little bit different than others, but of course everybody's unique, everybody has his own expertise or his own qualities. So there are a lot of good stories also, that they work together, or school work, I mean, that they play together. It's very beneficial of the stories that I've seen also here in Egypt, but also in other countries that I've worked for Handicap International, where you saw a play together there, that you had, for example, children with disability, non-disabled children playing together on all kind of sports activities. It's an enrichment. It's very yeah. We have to go in this future modus of having an inclusive society. So I think that there's a lot of gaps and there's a lot of things to still needs to be done. But I think we slowly move in the right direction. Also, the government is adhering to this this inclusive approach. So I think that there's a lot of things to do. But it can happen. I've seen good examples in Ashut, for example, also in Cairo, on inclusive education, on inclusive sports, on inclusive recreational activities. So yeah, there's a long way to go.
There is hope, and it can happen. Actually.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to focus on Handicap International. I know it's a co-winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. I want to focus more about the success stories of Handicap International lately, especially here in Egypt. You've launched this awareness campaign. What's before? I want to know details about your projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
I told you about Egypt. So we work mainly on disability rights. We work on empowerment, we work on inclusion. So from three these aspects we work since 2014, as we are registered since 2014, so we work through multiple projects on this aspect. We have some successful projects that were implemented in Ashut and is also in Cairo, related to Tamkin. I think that the translation is empowerment. We have ACT project there, we have early detection, early intervention, so it's also on children from 0 till 8 that we promote, and we want to encourage that some intervention will happen for these children that are early detected and can be done with interventions afterwards. So there are a lot of aspects that we work on. Also, we work a lot on inclusive recreational activities, on access to work. So we have multiple aspects that we work on in Egypt. And especially also the project of ITMAC has huge success stories, and I let you talk a little bit more.
I can briefly talk about ITMAG. It's a project for years.
The name again, please?
ITMAG,
okay.
Which means inclusion. The main idea is to support youth with disability, have livelihood opportunities, become part of the labor market, active part of the labor market, so they can improve their lives, they can improve their economic status and their social conditions. So we helped establish this local center in El Warraq area, and it is serving all youth with disabilities from both Imbaba area and El Warraq area, to sit with them to try to understand what they want. So not force any opportunities on them, and try to direct them and refer them to services, so they can be like rehabilitation services, vocational training, or training at employers' companies. So until now we have served around 500 youth from these areas, and I can tell you there is a huge enthusiasm from the youth. When they listen, when they are listened to, they feel that they can actually contribute. So this is part of it, but we also work on the other side of the equation. So we also target the labor, the employers from large companies, but also small companies, try to approach them about the business benefits that will happen when they hire a person with disability, and then we help the youth actually get the jobs and give them the support even beyond getting the job. And this project is funded by Rosos Foundation. And we really hope after this project we can implement the same idea again in other areas, because this center is now being connected with the main services. It's being more and more with time known by the public services as well. So we have really good cooperation, and we hope it will continue to succeed.
Actually, thanks a million for your positive energy. Thanks a million for this fruitful effort. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and we need episodes actually to be talking about the successful projects. Thank you so much, Mr. Rainier Karabine, and also Mr. Kadem Gaber, for joining us here in Nile TV International. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us, and good morning.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this wraps up our segment. Please wait for us right after the short break, and we'll be back. Please stay tuned.